This is an incredible episode today with Craig Garden from Aversio Wellness and Aversio Labs, CEO and co-founder. We really had a heartfelt conversation on everything from him joining our men's retreat and some insights there to how his mushroom business came to be and the incredible journey that he went through with his wife and now is on with his family to develop this business and how it's impacted their life and how they are in turn impacting the world. We touched on conscious parenting and everything in between. So you don't want to miss today's episode. It truly is a very, very special one with Craig. He is just an amazing human behind all his roles and his achievements. And I'm really excited for everybody to have a listen to this episode and see the greatness that's within. So please have a listen. Okay, welcome, my friend. Really appreciate you joining us today. For anybody listening, this is Craig Garden, who's the CEO and co-founder of Aversio Labs and Aversio Wellness. And in my opinion, just an all-around good human. And that's why he's here today. So thanks for joining us, Craig.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely. And we were chatting briefly before there. I'm going to implement something new today. It just kind of came to me before the episode because I know a lot of people that are on this podcast, and including myself hosting it, have very full lives. So I want us to just do 3 breaths together just to really arrive today and try to be as present as we can, because I know we both have some greatness within us to converse about, and we can have many things on our mind. So let's just take a quick 30 seconds here, close down our eyes. Some nice deep breaths. And on the third one, really just release. Awesome. Well, thank you. Just to help us a little bit.
Great way of doing it, for sure.
Absolutely. Just helps us arrive a little bit. But for context, Craig and I actually only met a few weeks ago at a retreat that I co-facilitated, and we connected like many other awesome individuals that were there. But I'll be honest, kind of right when I met you, I was intrigued by your energy, the kindness I felt from you. And as we got only a few hours in onto our Friday night of that extremely conscious men's retreat, your vulnerability, you were one of the first to lead along with Trev and I, and you weren't afraid to do so. And for my experience in this world with other men and growing up, that's very rare. So I really commend that. And that's kind of one thing I noticed right away. And secondly was, of course, the extreme sports aspect. And we'll get a little bit more into that. But again, another connecting piece. And the last one, actually, I was just looking at your guys' Instagram this morning. Is your birthday actually on May 17th?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you share a birthday with my son, Atlas.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. So just so you know, that's over a dozen people I know of now that share that birthday. So isn't that interesting? Yeah, there's a lot of connections with that for sure.
That's very cool. I only have probably 3 or 4 that I've come across in my life with my birthday, but that's awesome. I just saw that this morning. I was like, I have to confirm that, or maybe they just posted it on that day. So that's awesome. But yeah, I want to treat, before we jump into everything about Craig and the awesome things that you have going on, I would love to chat about the retreat for a couple minutes and just I guess we can start with why you said yes in the first place.
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. So for me, I was actually in a meeting with my wife and other co-founder of our company. And we were in a meeting with, turned out to be, at the end of the day, the film crew that you had invited to take part in that weekend's events. And we were doing some planning for the rebranding and relaunching of some new products that we're putting on our CPG line of the business. And he goes, yeah, I'm doing this thing in a month's time. And like, Craig, everything about you resonates with what they're all about. And I said, okay, well, what is it? Like, bring it up. And so we did a 2-minute detour, and we brought up Trevor and you, and he told me a little bit about you guys. And of course, then my wife went on the computer and she was like, you're doing it, you're going. And she literally signed me up and sent it off to you guys, right?
That's incredible.
And so, you look at that after and you go, well, I had a wedding that weekend planned that I didn't even know about, and some dear friends, are getting married, and could have came up with some excuses on not why to go. But at the end of the day, I think everything happens for a reason, Mike, and that was really something that I think I felt we connected on very much so during that weekend, and that was just to say that if you're open to it and you're open to loving awareness, as I like to call it, and just being kind and what the universe throws at you. It sounds cliche to some people, but you got to be open to receive. And for me, it was at that time that I needed it most. I mean, the amount of things that we have going on between these two businesses right now is borderline, unmanageable at times. So, I saw a great escape in which, hey, didn't know a soul. And that's even better for me, because then, you get to really see what it's all about and what you can get out of it. So for me, it was an opportunity to get away and escape from what was going on and meet some other new people and just kind of take a break and recharge. And what it ended up turning out to be was learning so much more about some things that I was working on and not even knowing about that came to light. And it was a great experience. So, everything happens for a reason, as I like to say.
Absolutely. And I mean, Trev and I looked at each other many times throughout the weekend and had shared the sentiment, because it was just looking around being like, how did these individuals all come and this magic ensue of all the conversations that unfolded, and, people from all different walks of life, and how neat it was. And simply, as you say, it's, everything happens for a reason. And we just had put the call out, and there's many people that were feeling that, including yourself. And they arrived. So thanks for sharing that. And a piece we could go a little bit on there is of course, and I see with what you do in your life. So you're saying there's some value tied to personal development and performance, mindfulness and business success is what I gathered there.
Yeah, 100%. They all go hand in hand. And I think, my life leading up to this point in time and, business development wise was very different up to probably the last 3 years. So it's been about 3 years now that both my wife and I have been on this journey, if you will, in terms of mushroom wellness, and just, how we believe that fungi has an opportunity to really change the future of how we deal with stresses, the environment, mental well-being, mental health, wellness as an overall. So we see it really as a beginning and end thing, but personal development and taking time out, is something that we talked about in the retreat. Is it selfish? Many see it as that. I know I've been judged my whole life in the time that I do take out personally, whether it's to go and hide in the mountains, going snowmobiling in the winter, or going for a hike, or just doing any type of things that I do to reconnect with the energy, the life force on this planet, and really just with myself, and just kind of clear the cache, if you will, in terms of a bit of a reset to just get clarity to what's really important, because every day we can get clouded with a million different thoughts in today's world. And it's really important that we take that time out for our own well-being, especially as leaders in organizations, possibly, to say that that's okay, and that's important, and that's valued, and you have to lead by example. And, it's really easy to come up with a million excuses on why you can't afford to take the time to do it, or why there is a million other things that have to get done. But if you don't, you're going to implode at some point. So that's not good either, right? Or some other health reasons are going to arise, in which, you know, if you know, how do you ignore it, right? That's how I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's once you have a peek behind the curtain, right, and you see the other side, it's a game changer. And I love that point that you brought up, because personally myself, I haven't always lived in that place either, but it's a newer space in the last couple of years. And for sure, I think it's such an important message that people learn. You know, if you're in a sales career or business career and growth phases, right, we're kind of taught, and we see in society, push, you know, burn the candle on both ends. It'll produce greater results. And it's ultimately not the truth, because eventually you are going to burn out. And, you know, I'll ask you this. Have you ever had that creative idea when you're buried in emails, when you're going on Zoom call to Zoom call, when you're putting in 12-hour days, or does it come generally more in a place of when you're creating space for yourself, and being selfish, as some may see it?
Well, I think, you know, you could argue that even if it did come to you in that chaos, do you see it through, right? And so when you take the time out in order to slow things down and create that focus and that space for, you know, really the things that are important, you know, your health, you know, your family's health and well-being, and then everything else, you know, will come, providing you provide that space for it. So, yeah, I think that you stand a better chance to see it through, right? If you provide that space to focus in on and say, okay, well, that's a great idea, but now what am I going to do with it? And what would be the next step to that idea?
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And along that topic, that being said, you know, in the retreat being a little bit of a weekend of space for you, even though it was quite packed full of events and reflections and things, was there anything in that weekend where you had kind of an aha moment or something came to you that in creating that space for yourself?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, what I went into that weekend thinking I might work on, it never fails. You get a curveball and you choose, okay, am I going to deal with that, or am I going to allow that space to possibly explore that further? And I think for me, at least, you know, not speaking for anybody else, but that environment that was created there, and that sharing and caring really that happened, enabled that to flourish. And I've seen that through psychedelics in my space and in my own personal development, and to see that happen in a different environment where other, you know, humans were willing to be vulnerable and tell their stories and then share and reflect on it together. It was amazing. I mean, what I got out of it was something completely different, as I was saying, than what I possibly might have thought I was going to get out of it and going into that experience. So for me, it was something that I've been reflecting on since. And I think that's what I needed to deal with at that point in time. And it's definitely allowed me to be a lighter version of myself in moving forward since then. So I'm extremely thankful for it. Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for you for sharing that and for joining in the first place, because I think we saw a lot of that. You know, I had a friend that was there, and I learned things about him that I haven't known, you know, and then we had two family members, or two sets of two family members there that had some healing as well. And I think, so it's really neat. I myself included, you know, had similar things. So it's pretty neat that, that space was created, and it wasn't just, you know, Trev and I, it was exactly you leaning into the process and the other individuals that showed up. And so, yeah, really neat. Thanks for sharing that.
No, you're welcome. And I think you guys did a great job of creating that. And you and Trevor are just amazing human beings yourself, for taking a leap of faith and doing that and being open to it. You know, it's something that I said when leaving and told Trevor afterwards, like, he's a great hugger, you know? And I love that. And I think, you know, we all need to be more vulnerable And, you said something like, I was the first to open up. In the space and the business that I'm in, that is a big part of it, although I don't feel it's sometimes as genuine as it could be from other individuals out there. So it was really nice to see that, again, a lot of people are craving that, right? And a lot of people, it just starts with one. And I do it every day. Like, I cry in front of strangers here all the time, and they either leave here and they go, okay, that guy is like losing it, or they go, wow, that guy's really like, he's open. What you see is what you get. And I don't apologize for that. And I think if I can change and or help somebody else be vulnerable, if I can change one person's life through doing that, then that's worth being vulnerable. And that's what's going to create the needed change in society and a shift in terms of how we look and deal with, just talking about things. Because in talking about it in a proper set and setting, like you guys created there, or otherwise, that's where I think we have the ability to help change how we deal with mental health and well-being, and just the future of showing our children what communication is. Because quite often it comes down to communication breakdown in this world, right? We're all busy doing our stuff. And so slow it down, slow it down.
And I think you hit another great piece there on, the category, and it's why we focused on men for that retreat, is the vulnerability of men, right? In growing up, I know I wasn't really taught to be vulnerable. My dad was a loving man, but there was some dad things there as well of, do it right, and not much space for, I guess, potentially some forgiveness. You want to always make sure it's done right. And I think a lot of people go through that growing up, where we're being, just from other sources, we get told to be a man and be tough, and showing that side in our younger years is something that, we could have been ostracized for. And so I love that this conversation is unfolding. And I think, as you said, it's so important for us to lead, and for us to continue doing things like these retreats, and you and I having these conversations, because the next generation is what's important, and where we can break that cycle, and also show how important the females in our lives are, right? And if we only were to lean into the energy they put forth a little more, in terms of the vulnerable and emotional side, I think, the world would be a better place. And
I totally agree. And, it's funny because we were talking about this after, I was talking about it with my wife and some other people. And they just said, hey, what was it like? I said, it was great, right? And they said, isn't it wonderful that, these guys created this environment where you could come together and talk about it. And they said, it's kind of like every time we get together as girlfriends, right? And what they do. And so, and it's not like, I think that there could be stereotypical comments made on that, but I really think that's the difference, right? Like, usually when you get together with a bunch of guys, it's, oh yeah, crazy, this and that. And it's none of that. So I think for where we're possibly looking at things is, to your point, my dad told me to just file that stuff away growing up. Like, there was a problem. My parents are going through a divorce. You don't need to talk about it. You don't need to go see a counselor. Like, just file and push that stuff away. And at some point, and I remember this vividly, he said to me, you'll forget about it and then you'll move on. And so I lived my whole bloody life up until 40 thinking that was normal. And, so you talk about wanting to change. And I see that with my son. He's 16 now. And, for Father's Day, he sends me a message that, it brought tears to my eyes, like, hey, I may not get it right all the time, because I won't. But he sees our relationship as something that is continually getting better. And when he's able to articulate that and be open at 16, I mean, I couldn't. When I look back at 16, there's no way. I wasn't programmed like that, right? So I'm really hopeful that carries on, right? And to your comment that we have an obligation to do better in business, in health and wellness, but we also have a bigger obligation to do better with our kids and create these environments in which they can flourish, so that change comes.
Yeah, and I commend you for for that, because if your son is saying that at this age, that only came from one place, and it's you and Brandy as parents creating that, right? And that's spectacular to hear. And I can only hope that in 12 years, when my oldest guy is that age, it's something similar, because right now I'm conscious of trying to create that. And it's just, showing that constant hugs are okay, and, trying to have little chats before he goes to bed and in the morning when he wakes up, and keeping that affection close.
Count, man. Those are the moments that count, right? It's all those little things, they add up, Mike. So you'll do it. You will have. The fact that you're conscious of it, right, is what's going to create that environment. When you're not conscious of it, then ego's taking a front seat to everything. And when that happens, that's fight or flight. That's not good for development and well-being.
Totally.
Raising children in that kind of environment. So,
and
that's great.
That's a great point of ego. You know what I mean? And it's us breaking the cycle, because if we were to look at ego, we could easily, I didn't get X from my parents. I didn't get X, and I'm not referencing my own, but in general, there's a lot of people out there that's the case, right? Where it's just kind of like, toughen up, right? And that's not the way we make a brighter future for ourselves or our kids, or create that line of forgiveness, right? So, yeah. Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks for those reflections. I would love to chat about, because of course, we didn't even really go into details on your guys' mission in the change lives through fungi space, but I absolutely love it. And I can say personally that these ones here,
oh yeah, you got the chill, yeah.
Since you introduced me to those, I'm not kidding. I have not slept so well in probably years.
That's great to hear, man.
And I'm not taking them every night. Like, I'll give space, but my gosh, like, I'm sleeping through the night and I'll wake up and I'll be like, whoa, I'm not groggy, I'm not anything. So anyways, I absolutely love what I've been introduced to so far, and there's many other areas because of, the path I've been on and am on that I want to look into them on. But before we chat further about kind of that, I would love to hear how you guys got involved in the mushroom space in the first place. I know a little bit about the story, but your background was in construction and project management. So to leap into this space, I can't imagine all the moving parts and the variables and the stumbling blocks and everything that ensued. And I'm just curious as to if you can share some of that pieces with us, at what ignited it, and kind of through the journey a little bit.
Yeah, no, happy to. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. My background was in construction management, project management. I started building roads when I was 16, 17. My dad got me my first job in construction doing that, and learned real quick that this was hard work. Went through and built houses, and then commercial developments, and then on to high rise, and everything kind of in between. And in doing that, I also got a lot of experience with working in designing and then actually constructing some cannabis facilities, and built subsequently the first one in Canada many, many years ago. And then a bunch of them across North America after that following. So was very thankful for that opportunity that my employer at that point in time provided, in terms of learning how to build things to GMP standards, which is good manufacturing practice standards, so that we could export globally across the world safely and whatnot. So that was my construction history and my past up to about 3 years ago. And my wife, at the same time, had been an elementary school teacher for 20 years. Just a brilliant lady in her own right, for sure, and just a huge educator, passionate. She would spend the time, and she was one of those great teachers that everyone loved having. And
we all have one of those that we remember, for sure.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of great teachers out there that don't get enough credit, and she was definitely one of them. So she's just a special human being. And anyways, one day I was at the office, and I came and I had a great idea, but it was based off of the fact that before that, going back, my wife was diagnosed very early on at about the age of 28 with something called psoriatic arthritis. And it's an overproduction of skin cells on the surface, as well as traveling arthritis is what the two get.
Oh, wow.
And so when my son was 2, she was straw fed and couldn't walk down the stairs. And, you know, I remember her looking at me going, you know what, Craig, like, you should probably go. Because we were very outgoing people. We ate very healthy. And I was just like, that's not even an option. I can't believe you'd say that. But that's just her and her character and not wanting to be selfish, right? So like anything and like anyone, I imagine would, we just really went down into the research and started going, okay, what's going on? How could we treat this, right? We're clean eaters. We're conscious of what we put in. But it's just so weird. We couldn't put a finger on what it was. And the research that we found kept coming back to Eastern medicine. And just this big disconnect. You know, at that point in time when she was like that, Western medicine had her on something called methotrexate, which is used for treating cancer, and it just destroys your immune system. And it was taking down everything else with it. And she had tried half a dozen things before that, and they weren't working. So we found this study to get her into this new and crazy drug that apparently would alleviate all these symptoms with 1 injection a month. And after 6 months of being on the placebo, you know, she got the real dose. 4 days later, all her symptoms went away. Like, it was magic.
Wow.
It was crazy. And, you know, back to life we go. And this injection was $8,000 a month, of which, you know, healthcare didn't pay. So because it was brand new, right? So we found every mean we could to go ahead and make it work, right? And in doing that, she took that medication for 12 years. And over that 12 years, she got skin cancer 3 times. And on the 3rd time, she just said, like, basically, okay, this is going to be, she was ejected from the study right away on the first one because they don't want those results posted, right, to skew the results. And, but of course, it was the only option that we had or knew of at that point in time. So we carried on with it. She made the decision to carry on with it and saying, like, take this, deal with this, or pretty much be crippled and not have any way of life at all. Let's keep going. And on the 12th year of taking that, and after, as I said, 3 rounds of skin cancer, she had a seizure while driving with my daughter in the vehicle. And they rushed her to the hospital, of course, and they did an MRI on her brain, and the scan came back really scary. I mean, it showed white matter buildup of somebody that should be about 75 or 80 years old. And so you look at this, you know, beautiful human and you go like, what the hell? How could that happen? Like, we know what we eat. We can account for everything because we've got 2 kids with PKU, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But we're very conscious of what we put in and exercise and whatnot. So it didn't really add up. But the only thing we couldn't figure out was like, what's in this injection? Because they wouldn't tell us. And that's where we dove into the rabbit hole of mushrooms. In going, okay, there's got to be a better way. Like we just said, there's got to be a better way. And we went into, you know, the research again after 12 years and fast forward with all technology and what's there. And we kept coming back to Eastern medicine and how functional and medicinal mushrooms had the ability to go ahead and treat, you know, for brain cognition, for inflammation, for VO2 max. And at that point in time, you know, I was an Ironman doing, I've been an Ironman for about 5 years, doing them all around. And I was looking to improve things as well. And I was like VO2 max and, you know, the ability to go in and just deal with all these different symptoms. We said, okay, well, let's try some of this stuff. So we went online like everybody does, and we went and bought a bunch of it, and we brought it home, and we were like, okay, well, we want to know what's really in here. So we sent it out for testing at third-party labs.
To make sure it's safe. We were
shocked at the results that came back, Mike. Like, it was mostly cereal and grain, rice. And we were like, where's the actual
core? Where's the good stuff?
Medicinal and components, right, to it. And So we scoured the earth, man, and we tested like tens and tens of thousands of dollars on all these products around the world from manufacturers. And we ended up finding a source of organic that was grown outside. And that was really hard to do. But we did it, and we brought it back here, tested the crap out of it, loved everything about it, and started taking it. And my wife, I'm happy to say now, it's been 3 years. She's in full remission. She has not taken that biologic, and she has zero inflammation. And, you know, when she goes back to, the doctor once a year for a checkup, they're just like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just, we're just taking mushrooms. Like, that's all we're doing.
It's incredible.
With a diet, right? Like being conscious,
yeah, of course,
put in, but that had never changed. So, and of course, in doing that research, well, of course, you read about all different types of mushrooms, and that's where psychedelics came into the play. And given my background in working with Health Canada 10 years before, I said, you know what? Hey, we might have something here to try and bring a natural nature source product to this new emerging market in which, maybe we could do it. How hard could it be? And at the same time, there was the functional mushrooms, and all our friends were like, hey, can I try that? And so we're giving it out to them, and they're like, hey, you got something here. You should really, start a business around it. And I was like, yeah, okay, how hard could that be? So I came here to the office one day and I said, okay, everyone, full stop. Like, here's my crazy idea. Do you guys want to start a mushroom business? And they were like, my wife looked at me and she was like, sure, let's do it. So we started. And, that was almost 3 years ago now. We incorporated the company about 2.5 years ago. And we've been selling our functional mushrooms for about 1.5 years. And we have a research and development lab on the other side, which is a level 7 secure Health Canada approved psilocybin manufacturing and compounding lab, which is just this way of our call. So yeah, we're just like, yeah, that's what we're doing. It's crazy.
It is. That's a movie that could be written, I think. And maybe Laurent's got to get that one going on a full length film.
Yeah,
because honestly, that's like what an incredible story that to look at. Where you guys would be without that. Still, trying to get those injections and paying a fortune, and you've turned it around and not only got your wife on an amazing journey, but you guys have yourselves to thank for that, for consciously looking at it and saying, we got to do something here, and we got to take it upon ourselves. And so that's like, what an incredible story. That's so heartfelt and amazing. And wow, what a thing to share between partners as well. That's a journey.
Yeah, it is, and I'm super thankful for it. I mean, it's not easy every day. It really isn't. And there's a lot of times where we look at each other and just go like, what are we doing? Like my wife crawled into bed at 4 a.m. this morning, and then we had presentations at 7 o'clock. So, it's nuts, and trying to find that balance in it is difficult because it's not like we just have one of these businesses. There's two of them they have a lot of synergies, but they're very different from one another in terms of how they function and the people required to make them work every day. So, but I couldn't, I look at her and I go, if I wasn't doing it with her, there's no way I would do this. It's insane. You need a partner in crime. And people go, how do you work with your wife? And I go, I've been married 22 years now. Like I've been with her 22 years, married 18, and I wouldn't do it with anyone else. There's no way.
Oh, that's incredible to hear, because there are a lot of challenges in that space for sure. And, when you take a relationship into business, but I mean, hearing the journey you guys have had, it's obviously a testament to how much love is there. And it's well above and beyond love. When it comes to these things, it's souls that are meant to be aligned. So that's super special. I love that. And thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
And, yeah, I love the point that it brings up as well, because I actually had a brief post on this yesterday, and I've been through my own journey myself. And in terms of people leaning into researching themselves, right, in the betterment of if anything's going on. I think it's so important for people to do today. Our Western medicine is great, and I applaud all our doctors and nurses, etc. But I do think there's a massive space outside of their school of thought, and that leans into this space and above and beyond. And I think we'll start to see a merger there eventually. But I think it's very important, that people think twice before just saying, "Oh yeah, I'll go on the antibiotics. I'll jump on whatever's thrown in front of me in a drug space if I'm feeling depressed or if I have XYZ disease." And it's just, it's so harmful to our bodies. And, it's so important. I love hearing stories like this because people need to take these things into their own hands. And, honestly, especially if you have lengthy journeys, it's as important as journaling, your daily intake and going through what you're taking and seeing how it affects you, and then going back to the drawing board. And so I love hearing how deep you guys went, and then never mind to have those entrepreneurial minds and switch it around. And now I'm sure you're probably making more than that $8,000 a month you were putting out before, and in a whole new thought pattern around it and feel. So it's amazing for you guys to spin that into however many people you now employ, and putting this amazing new product on the market.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it's been great. And, I think that there's, by no means, do I not support Western science and medicine. I think that there's a place for it. But, somebody said it to me really well. It was a naturopath doctor, actually, who said it to me really well. And I was talking about this the other day, too. And if you look at it, Western medicine as a whole really treats like, are we bleeding? Have we broken something? Is there something going on? They're great at, treating like the surface. And they're great at treating like, the broken bones or mending, organs.
The open heart surgeries and
But where it's kind of lacking, right, in terms of if you're lucky enough to have a physician in today's world and not a walk-in clinic where you're just a number, is going in there and actually taking the proper time and care with a physician that would be required in order to understand what other things are happening in your life that could contribute to what you're possibly dealing with, right? Instead of, you look at it like, we'll just take a pill for that. And it's just like, okay, that's a slippery slope, and I think we're all agreeing that, we want more accountability, right? And it almost seems to be that there's a shift, and it's almost like an expectation that you do your own research now, right? Like, don't believe what you're being told in the sense of, well, somebody who has a PhD told me this is what's going on. You might want to question that, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think you have to, right? I think we all have an obligation, given how much information is available, and you got to sift through it. I'm not saying you don't, because there's a lot of misinformation out there too. But if it's important enough to you, take the time, dig into it, ask the proper questions. It's why we're transparent in our business. We see a lot of other companies out there not doing it that way. We post our COAs, which are certificate of analysis, on our webpage. Like, you should question what tests are being done to ensure the safety of this product and the beneficial compounds behind it, even if it's a nature sourced product. And if you're not asking that, then you really don't care about what's going into your body. You might just want to be doing it for the cheapest way possible. And then you get this stigma attached to it. Well, I didn't feel anything. I didn't get anything out of it. And it's like, oh my goodness, guys, like, that's such an old programming. Like, you got to look at it differently. So anyways, education, power, and knowledge for sure.
Yeah. And I do think you nailed it, right? A lot of the things that you mentioned, modern day doctors take care of, but it's a lot of the ongoing chronic, mental challenges, items like that need to look outside the box a little bit. And everywhere, as you said, everyone should be doing their own research for sure. In the psychedelic space, so do you guys lean into that at all in terms of your research and some of the products you're putting out there, and what would the use cases look like for those, for someone that's not really familiar with it?
Great question. So as I was mentioning, the other side of our business is research and development. So with psychedelics, and our primary focus is psilocybin-based mushrooms. And that's what we actually, from spore or mycelium, cultivate and then harvest and then test, process. And we're just in the midst of starting human trials with our product in a whole mushroom form, which, it's taken us 12 months of growing and testing to get to a point in which we're comfortable to provide something to Health Canada and to these trials in a whole mushroom form. Predominantly, everything on the market right now is either synthetic or it's an extract, which is an isolate, and it doesn't carry all the other beneficial or entourage effects from the beneficial compounds that are present. We've isolated about 153 other beneficial compounds in whole mushroom itself, which will not be present when you do an isolate or an extraction, because it strips those out in order to just get psilocybin and psilocin and baeocystin. So our work is just, again, going back to the root cause, and that is Mother Nature didn't mess this up. So why are we trying to recreate it, right? I believe strongly in the fact that, although everyone should have a choice, and I think that that's very important. So there is, I think it's great that there's synthetic there. And if somebody feels more trustworthy in a lab grown E. coli-based synthetic single molecule, go for it. Who am I to judge? But I think that there is a large want on a whole mushroom approach that, again, Mother Nature created. And, for the reasons in which we've evolved as a species, I don't think it's broken. I believe that the set and setting around the experience is crucial, and that we have an obligation as a manufacturer of this substance to ensure that the safety is there and the efficacy has been proven behind it. And why am I doing it? I'm doing it so that if my 16-year-old one day, when he's old enough and it becomes legal, is able to have a trusted source that he knows wasn't grown with something else, or he doesn't have the knowledge to go out and pick it in the wilderness, that he has a choice of getting something that he can know is safe and trusted. And that's really all we're trying to do. We're not going to make it any harder than that. And we really just want to get it out there to the humans as soon as possible. And that's safely. really what we're doing there. But we're, in terms of the grand architecture of it all right now, we're still early days in terms of that. There's a lot of product that can be bought online. But what we have found in our testing is there's a factor of about 150 times potency discrepancy between one mushroom of the same species and the same mushroom of the same species right beside one another. So that's crazy. Like when you think about a percentage of like 1%, and that's 150 times stronger than that. I mean, so how do you, and that's why they're synthetic, right? Because they can dose it every time. So we've spent the last year here in our lab just trying to standardize how we get that N percentage every time. Consistent. And then through the manufacturing and processing of it, ensure that it comes out the same and is regulated time and time again. And it's taken us a year to do that. So, we're a private company, and we got to do that quite conservatively every day. We don't have unlimited funds to be playing with. We're not a public company. And so we're just trying to do the good work that I would expect somebody would do if I wanted to put it in my own body. And that's just straight up where it goes to, Mike. So.
Wow. So you guys, your aim is to be the first Whole Foods of mushrooms, basically.
Yeah.
Creating the real quality, the whole stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We go back to the cannabis days, right? And there was a lot of people and companies early on that said, hey, we're going to create just a synthetic THC type of medicine, right? And that didn't go very well. is what was the response? I think you fast forward to where people are, and I'm not a consumer, as you know, of cannabis, but and I don't judge. I mean, to each is their own, however it may help you. But I think that, people want that full spectrum kind of entourage effect. And when we got an opportunity to talk to Thomas Hurdle, who was the first Canadian in Canada to be issued access to psychedelics, who he was at that time and is still battling stage 4 cancer. He has been through now and had, I believe, and don't quote me, but I believe it's 6 or 7 experiences. And that was back in, 2018. And I got a chance to talk to him last month and since. And I just said, have you done synthetic versus whole mushroom? And he goes, Craig, I have. And I'm like, oh, tell me. And he was talking on this panel, and a doctor had asked him. And he simplified it as, synthetic was, the onset of it was quick, and it ramped up straight like a wall. So you went from in less than 5 minutes to intense liftoff, and then it was a shorter duration, and then it dropped right off. Whereas the analogy he provided was natural was like taking an airplane, and you're slowly ramping up to that peak experience. You're having it, and then when you're coming down, it's a nice slow integration period. And so
a lot more tolerable than walking into a wall.
And what he said was, it's quote unquote, the mystical experience was not there with the synthetic. And I contribute, given my own, history with this substance, that mystical experience has a lot to do with the outcome in terms of connection with, Mother Earth, other life forces, other life, humans. I just think that there's such a great connection to it that way, at least for me and what I've experienced. So I find it vital. He said, given the choice, there's no question he would take natural. So again, that's where we are and what we're doing. And we're hoping to, start trials here in the next 45 to 60 days, phase 1 and 2 trials of our product, working with a group out of Calgary. So, and we're looking at another one in Australia. So, it's starting to happen, but again, we're years away from legalization on that.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's super exciting though, that you guys are on the forefront of it and that you're doing it from, such an ethical place and that you have that view on that. What's the, just a couple more questions on the mushroom piece. I love it. It's so interesting. And what's the grand vision with Aversio? Is it to educate the world on this stuff and of course try to follow along with the products, but what's the grand vision if you could summarize it? 10 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever.
Yeah, great question. I think the grand vision for us is just, it's not any more than just providing anyone who wants it an option to see things differently and have a different experience and possibly a different outcome with life. I don't know anyone who's been down this journey of taking a psychedelic and not coming out to be maybe a better version of themselves. And that happens with proper integration and set and setting. So, what's important to us is that everybody has a choice. There's a lot of people out there that are suffering from PTSD, anxiety, depression. We're just starting to scratch the surface in terms of what these amazing compounds have the ability to unlock and help heal. And so just creating a different option for anyone who so chooses to explore it in a safe, controlled dose. And it's not anything more prevalent than that and any bigger than that, because I think that's enough for us to do. I think that there's going to be a lot of other people out there that do a lot of other things with it, and that's wonderful. And if we can just kind of stay in our lane and just do that, that would be enough for us. So just to give people an option, at the end of the day, if they so choose it, to get that meaningful change in their life in a legal way.
Yeah, I love that. One last question on that, because I know we were chatting about, it being safe for your kids and take away the psychedelic side of it, but the everyday use mushrooms or the different ones that you guys have out there now, Are they safe for kids? What would you say around that piece?
Okay, so this is where I got to wear two hats. So on one hat, so I'll start by saying that we reference them as functional or medicinal mushrooms, which are non-psychoactive. And, we have a doctor of mycology here and working in our lab, and he argues with me all the time, Craig, all mushrooms are functional mushrooms. And I said, I know, but it's how marketing world works, how people, connect with things. So, medicinal mushrooms would be the proper term to be used for these mushrooms that we sell and provide. And then, second to that, you asked, are they safe for kids? Well, if you ask Health Canada, you have to be over the age of 18 to take them, I believe is what it is, or what we put on our packaging. But I'll tell you that I feed them to my children every day. And I feed them to my dog for that matter too, because, dogs are predispositioned like all of us for a lot of, health problems. And I have a boxer purebred, and so I give her turkey tail every day. That's just something that she'll always have. But my kids, our kids don't get sick, and my wife doesn't get sick, and I don't get sick. And 3 years we haven't got sick.
There's got to be something behind that.
I got COVID, but I didn't get sick. So
who hasn't?
Yeah. It didn't impact us, right? The way that maybe it normally could have. So it's a bit of a question mark for me in terms of why Health Canada says what they say, because they have a monograph for it. So we have to follow that line because we have NPN numbers, and we have to put that on our packaging. But they're just mushrooms at the end of the day, folks. They're not going to kill you. And there's less than 0.5% of the population who's allergic to them, funny enough, which that in itself is kind of interesting, right? When you look at it, because the molecules of mushrooms actually line up perfectly to work in our bodies. Well, why is that? Maybe because we've been taking them for a long time? I don't know. You got to ask some more questions, right?
Yeah, that's what it's about. Absolutely. Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing all that. That's a wealth of information. And I am going to hit you up behind the scenes for the dog info and kids, because I have a very massive dog who's anxious, and then for the well-being of my kiddos for sure.
Yeah.
But I know we're getting to the top of the hour here, and I don't know how you are on time, but we can. I do have a couple.
5 more minutes.
Awesome. I have 2 last questions I would love to ask you that I like every guest to answer. What is your personal definition of a conscious creator, and how does how does that definition relate to your life?
Wow. Personal conscious creator.
Your personal definition.
Well, I think that's an interesting question, and I don't know if I have the right answer for it, but I have an answer that comes to mind, and I think it's being accountable to yourself, being open, being honest, and being accountable. And I think those are the 3 things that I try to live my life with, Mike, in terms of fulfillment every day. And if I'm being honest with myself and I'm following my intuition and my gut, and then being accountable at the end of the day, like, I mess up all the time, and I don't know anyone who doesn't, but there's a difference, and I try to teach this to my kids and even to my staff, just to say, like, it's okay, we're going to make mistakes. Let's make as many as we can as fast as we can, right?
Yeah.
Elon said it really well that way, and I think, it's just be accountable, be honest, and be truthful to yourself.
Thank you. That was perfect. And then the last one. This is one I think about a lot as, I've had my kind of awakening and enlightening spaces, is if you were to give your younger self one piece of advice with the knowledge that you have now, what would that be?
Stop and slow down and kind. Be kind. I think straight up, man, like if I could go back, I would be kinder. That's the thing that I would take away the most of. Just all the way from beginning right up until 3 years ago, I would just want to be a kinder human being. And I think with that, possibly I might have touched more people to inspire them to be kind as well. So kindness. Yeah,
well, that's wonderful, and the fact that you're there now is enough. Know that, and we both have long lives ahead of ourselves still, and to have that acknowledgement is great. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. There's so many gold nuggets of wisdom within our conversation, and I truly appreciate your time and you as an individual. And please share with everybody, where they can find out more about Eversio and where we can share your message.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having us. So Eversio Wellness, that's EVERSIO wellness.com. You can go there and check things out. There's a link to our lab site as well, so you can check out things on psychedelics. But that's truly where, again, in the order of transparency, you can learn a ton on our website. We cite medical, scholarly articles everywhere, and we update it on a monthly basis, just to empower people to find a source for information. But do your homework. Don't trust us.
Well, thank you again, my friend. I truly appreciate it. And I know we'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Have an amazing rest of your day.
You too. Be well.
Bye for now. If today's episode resonated with you in any way, or you feel it added value to your day, please, please, please feel free to share it with friends. And of course, link and subscribe so that you can be alerted for future episodes. We sincerely appreciate you watching, and always remember to learn, laugh, and love. Until next time.